Natalia Bakaeva, arquitecta registrada en la OAA, es una creadora de espacios apasionada por reflejar influencias culturales en su trabajo. Con una trayectoria que abarca proyectos residenciales, comerciales, de salud, educativos y espacios públicos dedicados al arte, ha trabajado en Japón, España, Moscú, Londres y Toronto, donde reside actualmente. Como cofundadora de ARKI, se enfoca en integrar la inteligencia artificial en el diseño arquitectónico, transformando datos no utilizados en recursos consultables. Su enfoque empodera a los arquitectos para centrarse en la creatividad y la eficiencia, mejorando los resultados económicos y de sostenibilidad en el entorno construido. Esta conferencia es presentada por Cemex, empresa líder en materiales y soluciones de construcción sostenible, que tiene como eje central a la innovación y a la sostenibilidad para crear valor para sus grupos de interés. Sanilock, más de 35 años fabricando mamparas para espacios de sanitarios públicos. Presente en todos los municipios de México y algunos lugares del extranjero, brindando comodidad y confianza con diversos modelos y acabados que se adaptan a su proyecto. En mamparas para sanitarios públicos, Sanilock es la solución.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalia. This session is going to be in English, so if you need to get a translator, you can get one of those little devices with the headset, right? So I'm coming here from Canada, and today we're going to be talking about advanced AI integration and how we can, as architects, embrace AI, not to be scared of it, and be as cutting edge as other industries out there. I'm going to start with a quick high-level introduction and explain to you why I'm here today and how I think I can bring value to you with this presentation. Together with the team, we are building a cloud software that is geared towards architects. We are a Toronto-based company, which is in Canada, and we are currently working with architectural offices in 4 countries. The whole premise of this product is AI-driven design that serves architects. Important to mention that we build with architects, unlike other software out there, and I think it's extremely interconnected with the day-to-day practice and business of architecture and focused on increasing day-to-day productivity. We're going to have 40 minutes for presentation and 10 minutes for questions. You can ask them in Spanish or English. And here are the key takeaways that I want you to take home with you from today's session. We're going to talk about the current landscape of AI augmented tools and the state of things as they are today. We're going to talk about the case studies and how the implementation is working based on 1.5 years of AI research that I've been personally doing. And I'm going to send you home with the plan of actions and things that you can start doing today to stay current, stay relevant, and make sure that you never left out of context. That's something that you want to do. I'm going to introduce myself again. I know there was another intro already in Spanish. I'm a registered architect with Ontario Association of Architects, which is in Canada. I've been in Canada for the past 10 years, and originally I am from Russia. I studied and worked in 5 countries, which I believed helped me to see similarities and differences between the practice and business of architecture. And you will see that what we are building today is extremely interconnected with my observations in the past 18 years in the profession. As an architect, I started using BIM very early when I was only 18 years old, and I was always extremely interested in the intersection of design and technology. To give you my design background, there's some of the projects that I worked on. The first row is the projects that I basically designed when I was still employed as an architect in the firm. And you can see it's a high density, which is the reality of Toronto today. The city is growing. During the pandemic, I started my own architectural studio. And here you can see some of the urban interventions that I've been doing. Toronto recently introduced a new housing typology called the laneway house, meaning that you can build a secondary house at the back of your property instead of the garage or the shed, and essentially you can get additional space on your lot, and you can see this is the interior and exterior of it, and there's just some of the heritage restorations of fourplex that I've been doing. Also, I used to do some of the art installations as well. Those are typically overhead sculptures that are exhibited in public spaces. For example, this installation here in the corner, it's a 3-story tall, very light, mobile-like installation. So why is it so important to talk about this topic today? We see a lot of interest in this topic, and people are coming to us with the question, why now? And when I say people, mostly designers and architects. I'm traveling to see all of you here today. I just recently gave a presentation in California. I'm going to Spain in 2 weeks. And all those conversations are rotating around the same topic. How can we implement AI and be more productive? The reason is that AI and machine learning in recent years have become more accessible. And we see a wider adoption across many industries. We see that various sectors are experiencing exponential growth of AI applications. At the same time, we see a boom of AI adoption in our profession as well. Even though architects are known to be even kind of like a slower adopters of the new tech, here with AI, it's changing. And we more often see people who are using something like ChatGPT, image generation, I'm sure you're all familiar with that, something that 2 years ago we haven't heard of. And over 50% of architectural firms that we talk to already today have an AI group in their office which is dedicated to either testing new AI tools or looking into the future AI adoption in their office. At the same time, when we look at the adoption curve, we are still extremely early. A lot of these tools have not been thoroughly tested. Some of them are not compatible for the wider adoption at the firm or enterprise level. There is definitely some room to grow, and we can see that. But at the same time, for those who are able to embrace this early adopter mentality, this represents a huge opportunity to find market differentiation, to gain competitive advantage, and to position yourselves as an outstanding practice in the industry. You have to remember there are about 7,000 architectural firms in Canada. There are about 80,000 architectural firms in the US. Unfortunately, I don't know how many architectural firms there is in Mexico, but I think there's about 150,000 of architects in your country. And I think it's fair to say that just lowering the price for design services will not get us to a sustainable, competitive design practice. And we as architects need to focus on working with productivity and efficiency and being able to monetize our existing knowledge. So now let's talk about the current challenges. And these are the main obstacles that we see every day in the adoption of the new tech. And we as a team at ARKI now trying to break every day. The first one is the cultural shift. This does not only apply to AI, but to technology in general. Architects are used to their own ways, and they prefer to keep things that way. There are also data privacy and training concerns. We hear that question a lot, how the data is being used and whether it's used for training or not. The third statement for me is related to cultural shift. However, it represents a larger conversation. AI today is seen as a replacement of a designer or an architect. So design community, unfortunately, to a certain extent, feels threatened by it. But me, on the contrary, I see AI as an enhancement of the architectural skill rather than a replacement, and actually never a replacement. And hopefully today, with the case studies that I'm going to share with you, you'll see that yourself. Another challenge is we see that AI is leveraged for more creative tasks in the day-to-day practice. For some reason, when I mention AI to architects, they immediately think mid-journey, stable diffusion, and this is very curious to me because we know that machines handle tedious tasks way better than humans. For example, our brains, they are not designed to hold project addresses, project numbers, construction notes, specifications. So the question is, how come? Why do we, as architects, give AI the most creative tasks in the beginning of design process? The things that we love to do so much, and the things that brought us to this profession in the first place. We need to remind ourselves there are many non-creative tasks in our profession. And this is not a conversation today whether we like to do those tasks or not. This is a part of a separate discussion. We can have it after. The point of this discussion for me to bring to your attention what are the main opportunities, what are the main 3 categories that we identify are up for disruption in the next 5 to 10 years. The first category is detailing and compliance. The second category is project communication and project management. And the third one is information resource management. And just to give you some of the examples, what I mean by that, from the first category, code validation and issues of interoperability between pieces of software. Under the project management, we have minutes and reports, and we know that AI is already dealing with some of those tasks today. We also know that going through the emails and trying to retrieve historical data about the project and why certain decision has been made is extremely difficult. And we know that providing timely feedback is also challenging, especially for people who are principals or decision makers in your firm, and they don't have access to Revit or BIM or drafting data. And what ends up happening once they try to communicate their feedback, they do it using markups, email, or verbally, and inevitably that information falls in between the cracks, and it becomes not accessible for the rest of the architectural office. And the last category is my personal favorite. I feel like architects in general not very good at it, at least I'm not, is the folder organization and general information accessibility at the firm's level. And I don't believe that we are not good at it so much as we have so much software today, and the sheer volume of architectural information that we need to process is only increasing when we continue implementing those tools. So my question is, if the list of the non-creative tasks goes on and on, why am I, as an architect, is willing to give up the creative tasks so easily? Even if we know that machine is so good at doing the mundane task, going through information, file by file, line by line, why is the first thing that comes to a lot of people's mind doing the renderings and doing the creative work? At ARKI, we believe that AI should be doing your architectural laundry and not taking over your creative tasks. If you need some enhancements, that's absolutely fine. However, many processes already can be improved today using AI without encroaching into architects' creative territory. Okay, now let's look at more practical applications and go over the architecture software landscape today. You will see that some of these tools are fully AI, some of them enhanced by AI. For the purpose of this meeting, I identified 5 general categories, and you will see that those categories, they do not directly correlate with the list of non-creative tasks that I just showed you, and this is done on purpose, so you can see a more holistic overview of the entire landscape, so hopefully it helps you in your research as well. At the same time, you have to remember that a lot of these tech companies and a lot of those tools, they do not reveal all the information about what they are working on. They are under intellectual property and NDA constraints. Even for ourselves, if you go on our website today, you will not see all the information that I'm sharing with you, and this is done for competitive reasons and keeping this intellectual property safe. So the first bucket is feasibility tools. We're also going to talk about image generation, everyone's favorite, we can't miss that one. We're going to talk about BIM and BIM-like generation using AI. We're also going to review some site construction management tools. And we're going to also talk about data management. And from there, we're going to roll into ARKI case study and research that we have been doing. So let's start with the feasibility studies. Think about is the bucket of tools that are planning the site programmatically, based on parameters that are known to us, think about it as a Excel spreadsheet-driven design, or for those of you who work with developers, performer-driven design. Those parameters could be width of the unit, size of the parking lot, size of the parking space, size of the site, setback, balcony sizes, the corridor width, core size, and so on. And the one you see on the screen right now is called test fit. The second bucket of tools is using AI to generate images. For those of you who are familiar with the rendering process, you used to spend hours to set up the lighting and textures, making sure everything is aligned before you can render. Today, instead of doing that, you can navigate the render with the human language. We know it's still very early days, but we can see that it's developing extremely fast, and it's already super powerful. In my personal opinion, I think starting with the image, it's not the right approach, because I think that the data that we see here and the rendering that's been generated is not firm-specific. It does not know the history of the firm's projects. It does not know design aesthetics or the context. It is generic data, and machine is trained on the images from internet like Pinterest. This is something that we are trying to fix at ARKI, and our goal is having a firm-specific approach where possible. And I wanted to give you some examples of tests that I did. The first one is Photoshop beta. So the image on the left, you can see it's the landscape rendering from SketchUp, and the image on the right created without re-rendering, just navigating with the prompts inside Photoshop beta. The second one I gave it a try for you guys is the Prom AI. The image on the left is the clay rendering using Enscape from Revit. For this project, we didn't have a budget for colored renderings, but I still needed to create those for marketing and website purposes. So I took initial clay render, and I put it in the Prom AI in a test capacity. You can see that there's still a lot of things that can be improved, but for that, again, you can take it to Photoshop beta and finish it there. The third group is called beam generation or beam-like generation. In this case on the screen, you can see ARK. These are the 3 software engineers that exited Autodesk, and they started their own company. Think about it as a lighter version of Revit, if some of you work in Revit, and it runs on the web. Today, they are only focusing on single-family residential design. They essentially have a catalog of pre-generated assets, which you can change on the fly. And you can see that on the right, you can be drafting in real time, assigning value to rooms. And when you assign value to rooms, it's not just a tag. Plumbing, millwork, electrical is being created on the fly. So by the time you're done with your model, the construction document set has been already produced, and it can be distributed to the city or to the contractor. There's also a tool called HighPar. In this instance, HighPar lets us navigate beam model using text. So instead of modeling manually, you now just need a prompt of what you need, and HighPar will create it for you. Some of the site review tools, and the one we see on the screen is called Argyle. This tool maps the beam model with various disciplines onto your site to make sure that beam data is followed and accurately positioned on site during the construction. Now we arrive to the data management, and here you can see everything we have been developing at ARKI. The goal for our company to work with architectural data and use AI to archive your work programmatically in a smart way. And then you can retrieve this information for the new project that you're working on based on the design intent during the drawing process. Now we're going to talk about first case study. And I wanted to present it from the perspective of everything we have been doing for the past year and a half, and things that I have been learning, and share some of these discoveries with you. So we started with our holistic thesis that all the necessary knowledge for the design project execution already exists on the firm's server. However, we believe that it is extremely buried today. At the same time, we know that projects typically run in parallel, and teams might experience the same questions during the design process over and over again without communicating or knowing that's happening. We also know that the office best practice also sits in their own silo, and not always when you're on a deadline, you have an opportunity or fast way to access this information and to be able to find the answers. With ARKI, we want to be able to cut through those silos. So all the buried and trapped information is now released to everyone in the office. So no matter which project you have worked on or not worked on, now you can find the answers to your questions in a streamlined way based on the design intent that you have at the moment. To explain it more practically, I'm sure you all familiar with this. The problem that we are focusing on is the problem of data access, knowledge transfer, and being able to obtain a context when making an important design decision that will influence the course of your project. I'm sure that you're familiar with the fact that data in architectural office is extremely fragmented. We see here on the right the PDF set, which is extremely heavy and the viewer is crashing. We have Revit or AutoCAD data here on the left, and we also know that Revit or CAD models, they exist in their own silos between Revit versions or CAD versions, and the flow of information is extremely challenging, and I believe today it is broken. We interviewed over 200 architects, and we concluded that this issue of information access represents quite a large number of hours when you calculate it throughout the year. Our optimistic estimation that each person spends around 200 hours per person per year just to search for design-related questions inside your office. I'm not talking about Google, I'm just talking about your own server. And when we talk about 200 hours, I'm not capturing the time when we have to redraw something that has been created previously. I'm only talking about searching and either finding or not finding those answers. So if I try to summarize all these problems that we hear from architects are struggling because they feel like they are redoing the work that was done before. Example could be a construction detail. Architects want to avoid reinventing the wheel, and example would be if I successfully resolve the detail in my office, it went on site, it has been tested, and we proved it works. I don't want to be redoing this detail again just because I cannot find it on my server. I want to use this knowledge and learning of the office that we already deposited to our firm's data. There is no way right now to access the past projects that I've done in the office. We have a list on the server. Sometimes it's names, sometimes it's addresses, sometimes it's just numbers. But if you're someone who is new to the firm, and honestly, we even sometimes talk to principals who've been in the firm for 30 years, they don't have the capacity of remembering all the projects we've done in the office or keep in mind all the hundreds of references that there is per project. Today, when you're putting a design proposal together, you don't have a historical reference of something to measure against. When I'm placing a number of how many hours it's going to take me to do something, it's just a random number. We don't have information. What have we done in the past? Have we designed this before? Is this information available to you? Also, there's so much data, and they feel like answers are there, but they are buried. And unless you work through a very specific project, you would not be able to know this information. A lot of architects also use on-prem servers, which are conventional servers in a server room. And not necessarily they have an opportunity or financial opportunity to build a full cloud infrastructure. But at the same time, there is a need to have certain data on cloud. So we are, with our team, providing this hybrid solution. Today, if you want to catalog something, a detail that I like, I don't know, an application that I like, I have to manually save it, I have to name it, I have to give a tag to it, and then search for it. This takes a lot of time. And also, architects tell us that they want to leverage and even monetize their data, which is not being done today. So now, I will show you how we solve all these problems with ARKI today. So we are using an AI conversational search, meaning that inside your firm's corporate knowledge, you can quickly identify the information and find applicable architectural answers and use them based on the current design intent. If I'm drawing a sink detail, I want to type sink detail or counter detail and be able to see all the details I've ever done in my practice related to this instance. Then, as an architect, I can bring those assets to either Revit or CAD, depending on what you use. And if you have them as typical details, you can use them as they are, or if they're project-specific, you essentially need to redraw them partially. But the premise of this is instead of for you going from 0 to a finish line, we bring you to 50%, and then you finish it up to 100% yourself. So if we put it in use, there's an ARKI web component. That's where all the searching is done. And the benefit of having the web component is that now we bring the people who are non-Revit, non-CAD users into this ecosystem, which typically this is the people with the most amount of knowledge who are decision makers or principals. And we enable them to be a part of this design conversation. We integrate them into this BEAM narrative. At the same time, people who are Revit users, they can bring archive projects using plugin. They can upload, download data, and essentially use it for future reference and reuse. And as I already mentioned, the premise of this work is the feedback-driven design. We are working with several architectural firms, and now we are getting more requests, and we are always searching for more partners. For us to get to the point where we are today, we met with these 8 firms every 2 weeks, and we received the feedback. Sometimes this feedback would be directly related to the software development. Sometimes it could be some ideas, how they think that AI could be leveraged, some processes that they observed and they think that they can be improved using AI. And our goal for this product to solve the real pains. That's why we are working so closely with our customers who are architects. So remember how we said 200 hours per person per year is wasted? We want to be able to return these hours to architects, and the goal is to have at least 2,000 hours saved per a team of 10, which essentially lets them gain an additional pair of hands. Some of the most loved features that we hear from our customers, and just going to explain you the product a little bit more. So our users are extremely excited about the AI conversational search. And the difference with this search is that you are not only looking at the details from name of the project or the name of the view, you are able to dive into the entirety of this information. And based on that information, you can tell whether you can reuse this detail and carry it forward or not. Something that we're also very proud of, our hybrid details. For those of you who work in Revit, you would understand that a lot of details have been partially drawn in 3D and then they dressed up with the 2D elements. And today, there is no way to copy and bring this type of details further in the new project. And with ARKI, we solve that, and we allow you to file and reuse hybrid details. And also, if you're familiar with Revit, draft and views can be also filed and reused. So to sum it up, ARKI programmatically assigns applicable tasks to the drawings during the process of upload from drafting software to the web. Each firm's data is stored on the private, secure cloud, so there is no data cross-contamination between the firms. Now you're able to see the list of projects and all your historical data based on the projects that you have contributed and linked to ARKI. Your archive now is always up to date, and you can search through it. You don't need to have a separate archivist person because the process is so quick and smooth. Someone who is a BIM manager or dealing with tech already, they can just do that for you. And the most exciting part, now you can access your Revit or CAD data from any device, PC, Mac, iPad, or even a phone. If you're on site, you can take your phone out, search for detail, and just show it to a contractor, which I personally struggled with in the past, so it's very exciting for me. So to sum it up, our goal is to create a mind map of architectural information. We don't want to create another container of details or another storage where you have to first tag them and then only you can file them. We want to create a place of context, the place where architects can leverage AI and help make AI do that architectural laundry for them. So to explain this even further, I will share 2 experiments that we recently done at ARKI, and because we are a startup, we always going through experimentations. The first one is the zoning documentation automation, and some of you might already tested this, and you let me know if you're done. So today, for you to know if you're allowed to build something, you have to scroll through the large zoning document, which are hundreds of pages. What we can do with GPT, we can build a zoning document, and for us to do that, we only need to have a paid account, source document that we want to look at, and we need to know what we are trying to ask from that document. And this is the final result. It takes you 5 minutes to build. You can ask a question, what kind of building am I allowed to build in this zoning? And it tells you, but not only that, you can always go and verify it by asking what page it found it on, and then you can follow up and see the diagrams and the rest of the information. Experiment number 2, similar to the previous one, but even longer and more complex document, which is the building code. This GPT is deployed on the British Columbia building code. So instead of going through code page by page, if you're working with the corridor, you're designing a corridor, you want to know the minimum width, you're just asking from a machine, what is the minimum width? And if you want to go and double check, you can always ask for the clause or the page reference. And you're like, Natalia, how this is relevant? Why are you sharing all of this with the audience? Because we imagine ARKI is a series of mini machines that run in your office and enable you to design faster and smarter. A lot of people ask us, what is the future of all of this? So ARKI today is the visual search engine with the Revit drafting software integration via Revit plugin. And we see ARKI becoming a comprehensive command center to run your design business and diverse teams from a centralized architectural knowledge hub. Consider this, instead of doing a manual project setup, you can tell ARKI what project you want to create, you can add users to it. So you see yourself always with this co-creator by your side that can answer your questions and can help you with any of this architectural information. And honestly, all of this to get to what we love to do faster. We should see AI as a tool that helps us not to get our creative work done, but to get our tedious work done first, to make sure that we design elegant, compliant, and sustainable buildings. And if you're curious about implementation or what can you do today at your office, I will share you some of the things that you should keep in mind in that case. It's essential for you to focus on layer-by-layer implementation. Rather than assuming that we will just integrate AI when it improves, adopting this mentality ensures that you as an architect prepared for the gradual process of integration. Starting early will increase the chance of you getting this competitive advantage that we discussed earlier. Continuous learning, and I think that was mentioned today already, plays a huge role. For instance, with our software, we introduced ARKI Academy. It's a very short 2-minute video, and anyone who needs to be onboarded or added to the platform can just look at that video, and they would be up and running. It's a very streamlined, digestible format that contributes into continuous learning. Investing in new technology is absolutely essential. If you only rely on the current tools without innovation, consider that your clients, developers, maybe even consultants might adopt lighter, newer tools and enable themselves to innovate faster, and we as architects potentially can be left behind. We also anticipate elimination of certain processes once ARKI is fully integrated. So our customers have noticed that some of the existing workflows could become obsolete once ARKI is fully integrated. And streamlining does not mean just shortening the workflows. our goal is to be able to remove the workflow blocks entirely. You need to be able to provide the feedback. At ARKI, we develop software with architects, and this is done to ensure that industry-specific needs are met. And now I'm going to conclude with the plan of action, and for you to take home with you, and hopefully this will help you to look into the future. We need to get used to the fact that technology is here to stay. It's not here to replace us, but if we try to turn our back on technology, most likely we're not going to get far. And I would hope that everyone who is here today is very interested and believe in technology, and I hope you're open to this new paradigm. We need to get ready for the mindful retooling. It's about dedicating time and resources, making sure people who are making decisions at our office are aware of what's happening in the industry. And sometimes we need to become advocates. We need to build the agency for ourselves to make sure that people actually pay attention to this. Because in architecture or construction, it's always very easy to just stay on the deadline. You should start discussing AI in your office early. We see some architects approach to us and they want to test ARKI, but they're afraid that their bosses would not going to be on board with that. But once they see demo, they try the tool, they're often amazed by the capabilities. So it's just a matter of getting started. And the most important one, you have to be comfortable with change. Essentially, you just need to make sure that this doesn't feel like someone is taking the ground from under your feet, but rather it feels like the innovation is welcomed. And we are here together to be better architects, to be better in our profession, and hopefully this will help us get there. And you can always talk to me, and you can discuss any of these insights further, or you can ask me any other questions. Always reach out to me. And there are some of the other conversations that I've done in the past, and you can scan those QR codes. It will take you to the link. Now we're going to have some time for questions. And while we're doing that, here's my contact info. If you guys want to sign up for a demo, there's a form there. And that's it for me for today. Thank you so much, and looking forward to your questions. Yeah, it can be in Spanish. I have the...
¿Alguien?
Hi. Thank you for coming to Mexico.
For sure.
How did you start this journey on artificial intelligence, or what brought to you this path?
Yeah, know? Great question. Thank you for that. So the question was, how did I end up where I am? So I was an architect, and I worked in Canada, in Toronto, in many different firms, everything from 4-people office all the way to 250 size studio. And during COVID, I was employed by a property tech startup. And that startup, the idea was we designed the prototypes for the buildings, and we wanted to write a script and programmatically find the empty lots on the internet and match the prototypes with those sites. And from there, I got kind of introduced to the concept of startups and how the technology and architecture could be combined. I also learned how to speak with software engineers, with marketing team, with the sales team, with customers on a kind of scale. I learned how to hire people, how to run business and operations. And then from there, I decided to start my own practice. But unfortunately, the reality is that for the small studio, even though I was very fortunate to get very nice projects and good clients, it was very hard to scale. I just ended up working 24/7, and I had few contractors who were helping me, but at the same time, I didn't feel it was sustainable. And I decided to pause it for a second, see if I can build for myself some efficiency in the productivity tools, and then in the future, maybe if I decide to go back to architecture, I will do so. Great question. Thank you for that.
Hi. How do you think the database would work like in different languages? So for example, right now, I guess the programming would be in English. And if we wanted to implement that here in Monterrey or in Mexico, like, do you think it's ready to work in Spanish or something else?
It's, first of all, a great question, and I'm happy that you asked that. Because we're using AI for search, AI does not care which language the drawings are in. And I will tell you the story. We actually, I don't know if you saw the slide, but we are working with the two firms, one in Denmark and one in Sweden. And the first time when I got connected to the Swedish guys, they sent me a bunch of drawings, and I never realized that all of their designs is going to be in Swedish. I opened this Revit model, and I was in absolute awe. I'm like, what do I do with this? Once we deployed AI and we broke this Revit model into individual views, and we gave it to them, they got back to us and it's like, it's fantastic, it's working. So we realized, because it is AI, and even though we didn't design it this way, it doesn't care what is the language, as long as you put the search in the same language as your drawings are.
Hola, sí, bueno, una pregunta. Primero, ARKI programa, ¿ustedes lo diseñaron? Y luego, a ver si entendí bien, hay una parte que me llamó la atención de que, por decir, si una firma de arquitectos tiene en la computadora, no sé, 40 proyectos, este programa se puede meter al interior de cada uno de los proyectos AutoCAD para revisar ciertos detalles que hayan en el proyecto y tomarlos de ahí y aplicarlos. O sea, se mete adentro de cada uno de los archivos AutoCAD que puedan tener un detalle que puedas necesitar. ¿Así es?
Great question. So the question was, I'm going to turn this off. I don't want to hear the Spanish translation again. So the question is, how does it work? Can we deploy it? So first thing is, it does not go to all the projects. You tell which projects you want to archive, because we want to eliminate the instance where maybe some of the projects are bad examples. Maybe we don't want them to be there. So you point it using the plugin, and the plugin is a proprietary piece of software that we built. Here you can see, this is an example on Revit. So once you log in into the plugin, can I point? No, I can't point. Oh, excellent. Once I log in into my plugin, I can link to project, and that's how I point where it needs to go. And this will either point to the project on ARKI Web that already exists, or it will create a new project. And once I say upload, it will go and identify all the assets that are eligible to be uploaded. And we basically limit it by scale, by whether the view is on the sheet, which we assume that if it's on the sheet, it means it's valuable. And once you hit upload, essentially here, it just arrives to the web programmatically. We use our secret sauce, and if you want to know what it is, you should sign up for a demo. But essentially, it takes me, I don't know, a few seconds to upload this detail. I can instantly go and search for them on the web, and I can be using language similar to Google. Give me a door detail in Revit 2025. I can be just talking to it like this. We are not trying to, we're never going to work with families. We're trying to capture the architectural knowledge. We don't want to be only tied to like Revit families or CAD families. We want to focus on everything that is related to, you know, the actual design and everything that we have been extracting. One thing that, to go back to the comment about principles, we introduced, it's not here, it's been just done this week, a concept of note. So if someone who is not ever in Revit can go and leave a note, do not use this detail unless you update it to the new code. And then in the future, we will deploy AI to summarize those notes and for our users to also be able to search through the notes as well. I had a question there?
Yes, hello. I see that at the moment, your platform, ARKI, just worked for AutoCAD and Revit. Is there any chance that in the future you start working with some other programs that us like architects use at the moment?
Great question. And so here you can see that in our roadmap, Revit AutoCAD, the next one is going to be Bluebeam, because our users right now actually asking, can we go on the web, mark up the drawings on the web, and being able to bring it to drafting software together with the markups. If you can imagine, my software engineers just scream when they hear that. But the goal is to be able to integrate with the Bluebeam, Vectorworks, ArchiCAD. One of the firms we are working with, they're already using ArchiCAD and trying to figure out how to transfer the data. And think about the future as a glue that you apply on your architecture practice, and all the pieces just come together kind of automatically, but in reality we program them to be that way.
Okay, and another question, and last. And have you heard of SketchUp or maybe 3D Max, something like that?
Yeah, I used both SketchUp and 3D Max. We haven't looked into that yet because it's mostly 3D, and we want to focus on architectural knowledge instead. Thank you, great questions.